For about 1.5 months, I've been working on a hand-drawn platformer game. The entire world is just an imagination of a growing artist, gradually becoming darker and more depressing. You have a choice, save it or let it vanish. It all started when I was thinking about the idea for my next game. The concept of a hand-drawn platformer came to me a while ago, and now I finally decided to bring it to life. Unlike my previous game, I wanted this one to be more story-based. The idea of the game: you play as a person who represents the artist himself. The world around you is a reflection of how the artist imagines the places he has visited. For example, kindergarten is represented as a forest. The journey of creating the game started with drawing concepts for some locations. Originally, the game was planned to be black and white, but later it was changed, so every location will have its unique color palette. But the character and enemies will contain only 2 colors. After finishing the concepts, I opened Godot and created a new project. The core gameplay is simple, but it took some time to get everything right. Player movement was polished for hours so that the character feels good and responsive. Of course, it didn't go without bugs. At the start of development, the main character was just a black capsule, mainly because we needed to focus on making the gameplay feel right, and because the character's appearance wasn't finalized yet. Actually, the appearance still isn't fully determined, and the character is this placeholder with some animations. Here are some concept arts for the character. Each took about an hour to create. Coming up with a unique design each time isn't easy, especially when limited to only 2 colors. I also added some dust particles when the player walks or jumps, and synchronized it with animations. I also added the ability to shoot. Later, I started working on some locations. I began with creating a forest environment, drawing trees and stones that could later be placed in the level. The ground was somewhat tricky to create. I had 2 options: use a tile map or draw everything fully by hand. Tile maps would be faster but more repetitive than hand-drawing the ground. Additionally, with tile maps, we'd be limited to fixed slope angles, obstacle heights, and pit sizes. Drawing the ground fully by hand takes longer, at least several times longer, but results in more unique levels where no 2 areas are exactly alike. Since the game's feel heavily depends on graphics, I decided to go with the second method. It takes more time but looks much better. Next, I experimented with art style. As I said, originally I planned for the game to be black and white, but later I decided to add some color, so now each location has its own unique color palette. For greater flexibility and control, I drew every part of each level without colors first, and then adjusted them in Godot. This way, we can change each level's colors without redrawing all sprites every time. I also made 2 parallax layers. Front and back parallax really add much to the depth. In the forest, I also added these dust particles. It really adds to the atmosphere. Designing the art style was challenging. Deciding how shadows and outlines should be drawn was difficult. I tried different variants: no outline with soft shadows, sharp outlines, bright outlines with slight shadows. But then I thought, why should I stay consistent? It's possible, and even interesting, to vary art styles based on location, lighter and softer areas versus darker ones. Next up was adding enemies. I already had some ideas in mind. First, I created an enemy in Godot and scripted its behavior. Then I drew this cute fly sprite and animated it accordingly. Now it can be placed anywhere in levels to add challenge. The next enemy will behave similarly but with modifications. It will fall from above toward the player to cause damage, a sort of dive bomber type enemy. Creating sprites, animations, scripting behaviors, all that took about a day per enemy, and then adding satisfying death animations. Now it's time to create obstacles that are deadly but not overly complex or unique, since my game isn't meant to be very hard. Just enough challenge and variety. The simplest obstacle is a bottomless pit, a classic in platformers encountered in almost every level. Next is a saw blade. It can move or stay static. I made a script that allows easy control over its movement trajectory and mode changes. The saw will serve as a challenge in later levels when the story takes a darker turn. Then there's this huge stone hammer, used as a deadly obstacle now but potentially usable later as a tool, for example breaking walls or triggering mechanisms. Also, I made it so enemies will die on the saws too, which can be used in some situations. Many parts of the game are already completed, but there are still many tasks ahead. I'll return with more content soon, but for now, have a good day. Thanks for watching.